Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. If we could have a roll call, please.
Counselor Pedri,
Here.
Zadi, here. Hickerson,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Vitolo,
Here.
Robinson,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Demas,
Here.
Mayor Mickelson.
Here. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our city council meeting of February 21st, 2023.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Okay, so Councilor Hickerson, seconded by Councilor Zadi. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, which brings us to bid openings for vehicle purchase or leasing. Our first bid is from Ken Garf Automotive. From Cheyenne, Wyoming. There's a bid bond. The bid is $428,228.
Your Honor, can you repeat that amount, please?
Oh, 428,228, I think.
That's what you said.
Yep.
Thank you.
And our second is from Enterprise Fleet Management, St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, there's a bond. It's a 4-year lease in the amount of $555,607.04. $555,607.04. That brings us to presentations and proclamations. We'll start with the 2022 annual report from the Joint Powers Combined Communications Board.
Good evening, everyone. It's kind of weird being on this end of the table, but I'm happy to be back. So Rick Hawkins, our executive director, is presenting at the Green River Council meeting, so I decided to come over here and see everybody and give our annual report. I'm just going to go through kind of the highlights, the key statistics, and a few other little things. I won't bore you to death for reading through it. Hopefully everyone has it. I emailed it back about a month ago, and then I think it's also included in your packet. So if you go through the statistics on the first one for phones and 911, our 911 call count's up slightly from last year. And our inbound administrative calls, which are the non-emergent calls, are down quite a bit. And a lot of that is attributed to more usage of the in-vehicle laptops and the technology that we have for the agencies. So there's a lot less of people calling into the center. A lot of it's being done on their computers in their vehicles. So if you also notice, we started tracking a few years ago the calls that we transfer to Wyoming Highway Patrol. If we have any 911 calls along the interstate, we send those out to Highway Patrol. And they're about 4,700 calls last year compared to the 14,755 911 calls that we received. So overall, in just phone call volume, we're down about 14% from last year. Calls for service, they're different than phone calls. Calls for service can come from phones or from the field. Some of the agencies, as you can tell, have gone down, some have gone up. Last year was the first year that Castle Rock Ambulance took over the ambulance service for both cities, and also Fire District and Green River Fire taking over the county fire response area. So those numbers are kind of out of whack this year, or last year, so hopefully next year we'll start tracking that a little nicer. Any questions so far? All right. Radio usage, it's very similar to the phone calls. The radio usage is down, so every time someone out in the field keys up their radio, we can count the number of times they keyed up and then how many minutes they're over on the air. The radio usage is down a bit, which is good for us. It keeps the dispatchers or the communicators available for emergent calls a little bit more often. So, yeah,
I do have a quick question for you, and apologize.
no worries.
I'm going to go back to calls for service. You know, when we break that down, before we could look at medics and say, okay, that's pretty much coming from Rock Springs and then Castle Rock from Green River. Is there a way moving forward that the Castle Rock calls, since that's one service, is there a way to differentiate those, where the call originated from, like Rock Springs, Green River, or county?
Yes, it won't be in our report, but it is information we are gathering. So, and if it's something that you request, we can provide that for sure. So, no, we do track the calls on where they're at in the county as well. So, so there's some graphs on, I think, let's see, page 8. Shows our MDT usage. So that's the mobile data terminals, the laptops in the vehicles. That is trending up. So we count the number of radio log entries from the MDT and the number of instant messaging, so we can actually message each other through that system. All that's up, and you can tell that the admin calls and the radio usage have dropped quite a bit over the last couple of years. So that's what we're attributing that to. Number of 911 calls has been fairly flat last few years, so I'm pretty sure that's what that resulted from, is just the more use of the computers. Call taking protocols, there's really not a trend in there other than it's just going up, and that's just because we're protocoling more calls. So what that is if you call 911 or even just a non-emergent call, the communicator will walk you through a list of questions. And it's a very consistent thing. So if you say you stubbed your toe, then they have a special protocol for that. If you're having a cardiac arrest, they have a protocol for that, but it's a very short list of questions. You know, we get the ambulance going right away. So they're using the protocols more. They're getting more comfortable with it, and it's definitely been a valuable service to us. List of users, or not list of users, but the number of users each agency has. It's pretty self-explanatory. Smart 911 statistics. Smart 911 is a service where the public can go and sign up for a safety profile, where they can put in their family's information, their pets, their vehicles, their the utility shutoffs in their house, things like that, allergies, medications they're taking. If they call 911 from the phone number in that profile, that information pops up for dispatch, and we can also relay that to the first responders. The number of safety profiles created, all time right now we have 589 profiles. And as you can see, every year we get more profiles created, and each profile can contain a whole family. So it's really hard to say how many in the county have signed up for it, but that's how many profiles we have created right now. On page 12, we have a list of services. I'm just going to go over the ones that are to the public. I'm not going to go over the ones to the agencies. Obviously, we provide 911 service to the public. Smart 911, I just went over that. In addition to the safety profiles, there's also facility profiles. So businesses can go in there and sign up, put their business information in there. So if anyone calls 911 from within that area of that business, we also get the facility profile. So if there's hazards, propane tanks, if they're storing hazardous materials and stuff, we can have that information in there. Rapid SOS is the ability to receive accurate GPS location for 911. And what that is, since 2017, All modern smartphones now, when you call Smart 911, transmits their GPS location to 911 rather than this triangulation of all the cell phone towers. So we get a lot better accuracy on the location. And if you go back to our phone statistics, you can tell that 91% of our 911 calls are coming from cell phones. So it's been very useful in locating callers. We also provide education about 911 and dispatch, answer calls for service and dispatch appropriate resources for fire, medical, and law enforcement. We dispatch 7 fire departments, 3 EMS agencies, and 3 law enforcement agencies. We host the online jail roster, and we also provide Tip Submit, which anyone in the public can submit an anonymous crime tip to us, and we process that as a call for service. I'm just going to go over some of the completed projects. Last year, we replaced our 911 phone system. It was a hardware refresh. Mainly, it's the same system. They just come in and refresh the hardware. So we have new stuff. We do that every 5 years. And we also replaced our firewalls. They were end of life, so we replaced those last year. And then the current projects, we've actually already done a couple of these. We've already replaced our CAD workstations. Those are the computers that most of our software runs on. And we replaced one of our servers. And the capital projects for fiscal year 24 and beyond, you can go through that list if you like and kind of just get an idea of what's coming. Some of those things we're working on grants to fill this in. We were awarded the YDOT ARPA grant, and we're going to proceed on ordering some equipment for that. So other than that, that's about it. I know some of you had come to our elected officials orientation meeting and appreciate that. So just keep dumping information on you. So
I was going to say, before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to say thank you for that. Councilor Hanson and Demas joined me there along with Chief Walmsley and Commissioner Slaughter, and it was very instructive and helpful. And so I appreciate you providing that opportunity.
no problem.
Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Very good.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming. And that brings us to an update from St. Christopher's Highways. If you'd like to come up, welcome.
Well, like David, it's fun for me to be back. This is, since I retired from everything, I got involved in St. Christopher's Highway, and I'm here to tell you about it, and frankly, to ask you for help, because we're in a bit of trouble these days. St. Christopher's Highway was started in 2019 by the Holy Communion Episcopal Church with a grant from the Episcopal Diocese Foundation of Wyoming. And they've supported us for 3 years to the tune of $50,000 a year, which in this day of rising prices doesn't last a year for us anymore. We're having, we're serving a lot of people. We get referrals from the police departments, from the sheriff's department, from gas stations, convenience stores, people who see somebody that's in trouble, the YWCA, the Family Resource Center, anybody that comes in contact with someone can give them our phone number and we'll help them if they're a traveler and need to continue on to go somewhere else. We're not set up to help local people, and so, but we get a lot of calls from local people as well, and then we refer them to an agency that can help them that we can't. Our mission is to assist travelers in need to reach their destination, and that's a very important mission, because there's no one. We're not really sure that there's too many programs like this in the entire country. We help people get to where they need to go, and it does cost us some money. For instance, January this year was really a bad year, and it cost us a bad month, and we spent $6,000 just in January because of the road closures, people in the motels, feeding them. And that's what we get. What we do is we provide food, lodging, transportation, and clothing if necessary. One of the big referrals for us is the detention center. We help a lot of young people, old people, whoever's in trouble, who are from someplace else and have no way to get home from the detention center. I want to tell you a story about a guy I helped a couple weeks ago. He got out of the detention center, and I went and picked him up, and I took him to probation and parole because he said he had to get permission from them to go back to Colorado, where he lived. And we waited 5 days for him to get an appointment with probation and parole, which is a real serious issue in my opinion, because that cost us a bundle to take care of him for that period of time. And then when he went to probation and parole, they would not let him leave the state. So then we had to worry about what we were going to do with him. Thankfully, Frank at Econo Guest Village came through with a job for him, and he's doing okay and serving his parole in Wyoming when he'd really rather be in Fort Collins. But that's just one story out of many, many, many stories. We've been doing this for 3.5 years now, and I could tell you stories all night long, and you'd be bored to tears more or less. But I want to give you just some ideas of the kind of people we see. Besides the people from the detention center, we see a lot of mentally ill people who really don't have the cognitive ability to help themselves, and somehow they get here and on the bus, or a truck driver drops them off, or whatever, and they don't know what to do, where to go, and we help them get to where they want to go. We also recently had a family of 8 with the road closure in Laramie. They were advised to go down and cut into Colorado and take the road through Steamboat Springs and then come up 430. Oh boy, that turned into a nightmare for them. They could have died out there because it was a very blizzardy night, and they got stuck in Irish Canyon. And thankfully, a guy from one of the compression stations happened to be working late and came and found them and brought them to town, and then called us. They were told to call us for help. And that was, we had to call a tow truck to go pull them out. And that's a major expense. Car repairs, we pay for car repairs if somebody's car breaks down. And that happens a lot. It seems like we have a mechanic who takes really pretty good care of us at not a high-priced mechanic, but he does know what he's doing. Those are just the kinds of things. We get referrals from the hospital. We get referrals from the Green River Police, from the Sheriff's Department, from the Highway Patrol. Just anybody that runs into these folks that are stranded. And what I want you to know is we're not just throwing money down the tube. These are mostly people. They are people who really do need help because they live on the edge. And there's an awful lot of people in our society who live on the edge now. Myself would never take a trip without good tires, AAA, and my cell phone, and plenty of money available on my credit card. But that's not what happens with the people we serve. It's pretty amazing how desperate they are and how thankful they are. Now, the good news is that the Diocese of Wyoming is funding Rollins now too. So there's a St. Christopher's program in Rollins. And I guess really kind of our long-range goal is to have Evanston and Laramie and Cheyenne involved too. and that would take the heat off all of us a little bit. But it's a very interesting program. It has become my passion in life. Everyone that I have helped over these last 3 years, I care for them a great deal, and they know it. And we have a great cadre of volunteers who help us with the program too. We have a telephone number that gets passed amongst the volunteers, and right now we have a wonderful new volunteer, Robert Hernandez, who's injured and can't work anymore, and he's absolutely loving having the phone and helping people. It's the best thing in the world for him. So I'm gonna. This is Steve Davis, who's a deacon at Holy Communion Episcopal Church. We have 2 other churches that are highly involved with us, and that's Mount of Olives Lutheran Church and the UCC Church up on Adams. And our volunteers are wonderful. And I'll let Steve tell you more about our financial situation.
Well, as Joyce mentioned, we started in 2019 with, actually, it wasn't a $50,000 grant. We had a $5,000 grant that allowed us to start getting phones and stuff like that. And then we got the $50,000 grant from the foundation, and we've gotten 3 of them so far. We also got some COVID relief money. Can't remember what year that was, whatever year that was.
2021, I think.
I think so, yeah, which was a little over $20,000. And just last year, we got $11,000 in donations, and we're sitting at a balance right now of $10,000. So it is a very expensive program. There's no way around that. One example is we couldn't have gone as long as we did, except for when we started this, we could get a motel room for $35 a night. It's now between $50 and $65. So that's one reason our money's getting chewed up so fast.
And the gas.
And the gas. Yeah, we typically would go with $40 gas cards, and we were going 60 for a while because that way they could get 13 gallons maybe, you know. So any questions on that?
The average amount of money we spend per person is $189. So it isn't like we're a real spendthrift group or anything. We want you to know that we watch every penny as much as we can. And the community has been great about helping us with clothing, and Eileen Zadig will outfit people with clothing for no charge at all. We have food programs and at both churches, UCC and the Holy Communion Episcopal Church, so we can provide them food. It's a most rewarding job I think either one of us have had.
Yeah. And I know Joyce gave you the little tally of people we have helped in that. Just thought I'd let you know that for 2023, I have not gotten any of the disbursement rosters we use for February, so that's just January. And the disbursement rosters, we basically itemize everything we do for them. You know, if we give them gas cards, if we give them McDonald's cards, in 2 nights in the motel, whatever it may be, so that we can backtrack and, you know, show what we've actually done.
In the absence of your help, what happens to these people?
I think they just hang out here, to be honest with you.
And that's part of the reason why we started this program, because there were so many people that were calling the churches and not being able to get where they wanted to go, and it's a serious problem, and more so now since there's so many people living in their mobile homes and trailers and moving across the country because they're looking for jobs and they aren't ready for a travel. I'll tell you another story about a wonderful black family from Seattle who went to Louisiana because her father, one of the women's fathers, died of COVID, so they went down to bury him. Well, they almost spent all their money on the burial expenses, and then got to Rock Springs, and their car blew up, and there was 9 of them in the car, and they needed help getting back to Seattle, so we put them all on a bus to Seattle, and UPS shipped the rest of their stuff from their car, and the car was taken to the junkyard because it was not replaceable. Those kinds of stories are just rampant, and they were wonderful people and beautiful children, and they were so grateful that we were here to help them because they didn't know what they'd do if we hadn't been around.
Has there ever been a time you had to turn someone away because you didn't
Oh,
have?
yes. If we sense that they're trying to take advantage of us, we turn them down.
I mean, from like a funding, if you just don't have any more money, you want to help them,
Oh,
but
we had to shut down one year.
Yeah.
And that was the year the COVID money came in so handy. We had to shut down one year because we ran out of money fast.
your winters are your biggest, probably.
What?
Are the winters your busiest, I would imagine, or is
Well,
it?
I think this month it's been, in January and February has been our busiest because of the road closures.
Yeah.
That's really hit us hard.
You know,
Yeah.
the problem with the road closures is, I mean, we've at one point had 21 people in motels. Now, some of them were family units, so they are, you know, in 1 or 2 rooms, but they were here for a week. You know, before the bus finally came. So,
Yeah, the buses don't run when the roads are closed or even if they're a little icy.
So when you look at, if I could, you know, income, it's increased, well, fluctuates through the year, but in an annual basis, given what you've seen on average of need, what funding do you require total?
Well, we're not sure we're gonna get another grant from the Diocese of Wyoming because they funded us for 3 years. That was their promise. We're hoping that they will still fund us. But even if they do fund us for $50,000, I'm thinking if things stay the way they are, we need another $25,000-$30,000 to serve what we have. So that's what we're hoping to raise. We went to the commission this morning and made this same presentation. We're doing a mailing to all the Chamber of Commerce members to see if we can raise money through them. We're going to apply for a grant through Wyoming Community Foundation. We sense that we're going to have to become more independent so that the diocese and foundation can help the other towns set up St. Christopher's programs. So we're hoping that you'll be able to help us.
Any other questions?
If the diocese does quit giving you a grant, I mean, do you think you're good for this next year, or how soon could that be cut off? Because that's,
For July 1st is when we can apply for a grant again.
so you won't know until then whether or not they'll
Well,
fund
we're
you.
gonna try to raise some money to stay alive until then.
That's a big hit.
Yeah.
yeah. And Holy Communion has already been granted $10,000. So even if they would approve our grant, it would only be for 40.
Yep.
So,
Who can public contact if they wanted to make a donation?
But contact myself or Steve. We're the main contacts for the program.
on the little flyer, didn't you put
Yeah,
our P.O.
well,
box?
I didn't put my phone on. Well, Lauren, I give you my phone number. It's 307-371-1633.
1633.
And our P.O. box is pretty simple, 0567.
They got that on the flyer.
Oh, did they? Okay, I thought they did. So, I mean, if somebody just wanted to mail a check, it would get to us. So,
And the 922-238,
That's our
Bureau, that's the
active phone.
active
If the
phone number
volunteer
for-
has the phone. And usually a volunteer has the phone for a week and then passes it on to another volunteer. And so it doesn't become so onerous for everybody. It's hard work when you're up against people who are in such deep need. You're emotionally drained by the time you're through with a week.
For sure.
I've been told by many of the volunteers that, you know, when I talk to them, it's like, well, this was like a full-time job. Because all the volunteers are retired, you know.
Well, we
Thank you for listening to us.
we
And
certainly
it's so
thank
much
you.
fun to see you all again, especially you, Rob.
You too, it's good seeing you. Have you talked to Matt about an application for?
No, but we'll figure that Matt will see that, we'll get one, right? Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that brings us to our first proclamation, which is for Arts Month. I think we have. Well, y'all can come up. Don't hide back there in the shadows. Hey, look at that.
So the Community Fine Arts Center, which I'm Deborah Soleil, the director there, and Chad Banks from the Main Street URA. This is the fifth year we've done? Fourth or fifth year that we've done the March as designated the Arts Month for Rock Springs. And we put together a calendar. This year there's almost 40 different events, ranging from plays and concerts, classes and exhibits. And most of these are free. There's some that have a minimal charge. But we want just the support of you, Mayor, and the council to help promote that the arts are important for our community and for individuals. I wish I could remember the whole quote. Kurt Vonnegut spoke of it often, but he said, the arts make our souls grow. So I think it's very important. It's kind of hard following what you had to share, but this seems a little frivolous, but it really isn't. The arts are very important. It gives us reasons to, to get up in the morning, to look out, and we really do appreciate that we have a community that supports the arts that we do have. Some of you may know that our very own Actors Mission won the Governor's Arts Award this year. And that's a pretty big deal, 20 years that they have been in our community, all volunteer and all free. So I really hope that, we can keep the arts alive in Rock Springs. This is what is helping, I think, bring people together. And of course, it is all year round, but if we can designate and bring attention to it this month, we really would appreciate that.
Very good. Well, with that, whereas downtown Rock Springs, the Community Fine Arts Center, and all other local cultural organizations under the Sweetwater Arts Partnership has declared, and the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of everyone in our community, and the arts and humanities play a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country. And our local organizations have celebrated the value and importance of culture in the lives of our citizens by sponsoring exhibits, concerts, and performances. And the arts and culture industry also strengthens our economy in Sweetwater County by generating $11.7 million in total economic activity annually, $28.5 thousand in nonprofit revenue, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 300 jobs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Max Mickelson, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby declare March 2023 to be the Arts Month in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and call upon our community members to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in our town, and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said community members in taking action for the arts and humanities in their community.
Thank you. should introduce who was with me. R.J. Pieper and Angela Thatcher have been on the Fine Arts Center board for several years now. And then Angela Cable helps with the Arts and Culture Committee that is run through the downtown Rock Springs. I did mention that this calendar is available on our Facebook pages and on the downtown Rock Springs webpage. There might even be one up somewhere. I meant to bring one just to show you, but do encourage you to participate in something. So, photo? That's the rules. Thank you so much.
Okay. Our next proclamation is for Women's History Month, and we have representatives from the Professional Women's Empowerment Coalition and the Women's Club of Sweetwater County. If you'd like to come forward. Introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit.
We're representing the Women's Club of Sweetwater County. I'm a West District liaison for the state with the General Federation of Women's Club that we're a part of. And Kimberly Kellum is our vice president of our local club. We're very honored tonight that you have had this proclamation for us. It's a big year in our history. We celebrated 100 years as Women's Club of Rock Springs in October, and we know some of you supported our celebration, and I appreciate it. We also decided it would be a good time to change our name, mix it up. So now we're the Women's Club of Sweetwater County because we have a lot of members who are from Green River, and we wanted people to know we're not just about Rock Springs, but we do things all over the county. So anyway, my phone decided to ring in my hearing aid. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Silent over there, but not here. Anyway, we probably the first time that we came and visited the council, it wasn't you people then, but we came and we asked that you please let people walk on the grass in Bunning Park. And that was approved. That was one of the early things that the Women's Club accomplished. We have the lending closet where you can borrow wheelchairs and scooters and walkers and those kinds of things free of charge for short-term use. And we use a building that was provided by the council and by the city. And we give grants to students at the college, and we have given some money to different people in the organization like St. Christopher's that we feel is a very valuable part of our community. And still here? Yes. And Deborah Soleil, I'm just seeing all these people tonight that sparked things that I could talk about. So she helps us with Art Month with gathering up art from children, and then we take it in April to our state convention, and there's a dozen children that can win ribbons and money from the state GFWC organization. And then when they come back here, we give them all $25 and their awards at a special ceremony. So we're an integral part of this community, and we appreciate the notice you're giving us tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Casey Kukert, and I'm with the Professional Women's Empowerment Network, and I'm excited to be here tonight. I was honored to be asked to come and accept the proclamation. We are a coaching and collaboration community and networking community for small business owners, specifically women in business in Sweetwater County, and it's really important work, and it's been really well received here in Sweetwater County. So thank you for the invitation tonight.
Thank you all for coming. I would say everyone except for Councilor Demas should take notice that it was 1920 in Jackson was the first all-women city council and marshal in the country. So there's a lot of precedent to have all women up here. So maybe one day we'll see that. But on that note, whereas in March we celebrate Women's History Month and honor the contributions of women in American history, despite hardship, discrimination, and exclusion, and women play a critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of life in Rock Springs. And women have been leaders in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, and in the abolitionist, emancipation, industrial, labor, civil rights, and peace movements, creating a more fair and just society for all. And despite their contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in literature, teaching, and the study of American history. And this month, we celebrate countless pioneering women and their victories, and we continue our work to build a society where our daughters have the same possibilities as our sons. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Max Mickelson, Mayor of the City of Rock Springs, do hereby declare March 2023 to be Women's History Month in the City of Rock Springs. And I call upon the Rock Springs community to observe this month and to celebrate with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. I also invite citizens to visit womenshistorymonth.gov to learn more about the generations of women who have left enduring imprints in our history.
My goodness.
Is that what they call paparazzi?
It pays to be a woman in Rock Springs.
Thank you for coming. I've always been pretty egalitarian and equal opportunity minded, but when all of your children happen to be of one gender, it definitely highlights for you that it is not always a girl's world. And so I'm glad to have done that, which brings us to petitions and public comment. And I see we have the good Senator Cold and Representative Stith here. If you gentlemen would care to share with us, it would be very appreciated.
He's got a check in his hand. Oh, probably an invoice.
That means there's a lot of zeros on it, right?
It's a dangerous audience. Good evening, Mayor Mickelson and members of the Rock Springs City Council. Just wanted to come in and give a little bit of an update of what happened during the session. It ended last week, and by no means will this touch everything that we had done. So feel free to think of something that might have come up that I hadn't addressed. So I'll start off by saying that this is just the Senate. Granted, the House is a whole nother ball of wax there. They got twice as many folks and squared the number of debates. The Senate took 1,150 votes during the session. We had approximately 200 bills just in the Senate. It's approximately, no, I wouldn't say double that, 300 and some odd in the House, but a lot of things. I'll let Representative Stith speak of the budgetary items because we're lucky to have him on appropriations, and I do mean that, very lucky that we have that level of representation here because a lot of counties don't have that. I'll start off by talking about the ARPA funds. We did a little bit of rendering in the Senate, which means we took out the pork and stripped out some earmarks, and with that, we put back in $15.3 million that's available to communities for projects locally that you have to apply for with the SLIB board. So there's money out there that you can apply for what you think is important and competitively go up against other projects to see how you'd fare. But there's more money than there was there before. Next, I'll just try to focus on some of the big things I think that we have a chance at. There's a shooting complex bill that made it out of the House and Senate, and there's a maximum appropriation, there's a few caveats in there, of $10 million. And obviously, this is a section of land we're talking about, and probably, some cooperation with the county on, working together. So I hope we can work together as a community to present a plan to this committee that will make recommendations to the legislators on where to put said facility. We're going to be in direct competition with Casper, and I'm sure Cheyenne's going to try to make a bid for it. But I think we here in Sweetwater have a lot of open spaces with the utilities and infrastructure and our events complex. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, if we work together. But we're going to have time to, for our community to put together a package if you so wish. But it's a great opportunity, I think, for it's going to be a state shooting facility. But we have to come up with a plan, we as the community. Next, I'll just talk a couple bills. First one that probably will affect local city government is Senate File 164. And what that did was take away the advertising requirements for contracts under $75,000. It gives, say in this case, City Council more flexibility. And then it took away the bid bond requirements for vehicle purchases under $100,000, which of course was a big problem. It went through the committee I'm on, transportation. The issue being that it's really hard to get vehicles. I mean, you might enter into a contract and you wait so darn long, they can't deliver. So this makes it so you have more flexibility in the people you so pick, and you can jump from contract to contract if you can't get the vehicle that you thought you were going to get. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. Then Senate File 148, which is a preemption of local firearms regulations, which I don't think there was an issue here with the city, but there was in some other localities with differences in regulations as opposed to the state statutes. So this basically puts them all in sync with the state. Then my favorite one, Senate File 139, is unlawful use of a credit card, which was prompted by our county attorney. We didn't have a law on the books that, frankly, they could charge a crime of fraud or theft while using a debit card. Well, let's use a debit card. It's probably more understood by people. Strangely enough, we didn't have a law. So anyway, that was my bill. Got passed. So I guess it's not a whole lot, but I guess every little first thing you do is the first thing you've done. And that's on behalf of Danny R. Mosby, our county attorney. That's where that came from. And then House Bill 123, collection of sheds, antlers, which kind of is a Southwest Wyoming thing. It now gives our state residents a 7-day advantage of picking up sheds, which we didn't have before, which levels the playing field, for people that are making a lot of money off of sheds. This gives your family and you a chance to go out there and do that without, competing against, frankly, commercial people from out of state who are doing this. So I think that's really a positive thing for living in Wyoming. And then the two SWAT bills, off-road trails bills, there's two of them that work together. They basically have a mechanism now that, number one, allows a recreational off-road vehicle to cross interstates. Oddly enough, even though you crossed underneath an interstate, that was illegal, which I guess I'm in violation of that too myself in Green River. But this bill that'll become law on July 1 will make that not an illegal operation as long as WYDOT, they'll have to deal with the regulations with the federal government, but there's a mechanism that can be done legally now. Then the second most important thing is the cooperation between cities, counties, and to counties and other cities. There's going to be a trails program that it's up to you as a city council if you want to adopt certain roads, then put them on the state trails list, but you have to apply and say, I would like these roads, and you'll have control over wherever these roads go, to gasoline or motels, or whatever be the case, to get in and out of the city, go back out in the county. So there's obviously going to have to be some more I believe, meetings with the county to the cities on figuring out where you want to do this at, or if you want to do this. It's all up to you. No one's making you do anything. But it's an opportunity to connect southwestern Wyoming to start with, from going from Evanston to Rock Springs and so on, up north to Kimmerer. So I think it's a great opportunity, at least for the tourism, and try to get some of that activity that's going on down there in Utah up here in Wyoming. And then the local distribution to Rock Springs distribution money is $2.5 million roughly. Now we held off an amendment in the Senate that was going to strip her down by another $500,000. That would have basically taken the money from the larger communities and given it to the smaller communities. And the floor argument was that you folks in the city and the county support the smaller municipalities, give them items, help them, law enforcement and so on and so forth, fire protection. So in essence, the larger communities are doing that for the smaller communities. But if you look at the proportional amount of money, per person on that local distribution money, frankly, it's meager compared to the smaller communities. So it was $500,000 more, so it's about $2.5 million if I got my numbers right. Then lastly, I'd like to say that Senator Jones would have been here tonight, but she's feeling ill. I think, frankly, most of the Senate and the House came down with COVID. And I've recovered from my said COVID. Unfortunately, my wife has got it now, and I have to now do my duty as a good husband and take care of my wife. But Senator Jones got it, and it's gone through the House and Senate pretty rapidly. And I'd then like to stand for questions if you had any about anything that went on that you want any information in particular about. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time, Mayor and Council.
I just, our board meeting for Defense Complex last week, Commissioner Richards did mention the shooting facility potential. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, but I do believe there is interest in wanting to work together and try to do what we can to get that here. So,
Mayor Mickelson, Councilor Zadi, I think that's a necessity. We have to come up with a package to present to the. I'm going to try to be on that committee. I'm a co-sponsor on that particular bill. That I don't know what that really means at this point until the Senate President makes a decision. But the more folks, and it goes with industry people too, say Caltech or any industry folks, sportsman groups, Muley Fanatics, and it's okay to use their name. Those kind of people, there's a slot for them on this committee, and I think it's important that we find the best people that we can find here, to put on that committee, because I think we have a high potential of being successful, but only if we work together, though.
Your Honor. Yes, sir. Senator Cole, that off-road trails bills, those two bills, is that referring to the Southwest Off-Road Trails presentation we heard last year? Something similar to that, where they wanted to tie in Rock Springs, Green River, Evanston, up to Pinedale, maybe, Farson. Is that dealing with that? Because I think Evanston allowed them to cross interstates within city limits, right?
Mayor Mickelson, Councilor Hickerson, yes. However, it's not, it was never legal. So this was there's two, I'll give you the bill numbers if you want to look them up, but Senate File 17 and House Bill 42. Those are the two bills, and they kind of dovetail together. One of them deals with licensing and insurance requirements, kind of like a motorcycle. And then the other one would deal with, and also being enrolled in the state trails program. And the other bill was about Route 80 interstate, dealing with interstates. So to be clear, there is no legal way of actually crossing an interstate currently. So this is a package now. We actually have a statutory mechanism for the communities to work together legally, all right, working with state trails on a system. So everyone's going to have to figure out, just how is this thing going to be developed? Where do you want it to go when you get a sticker? So that it allows, frankly, out-of-state folks with a sticker to travel on these designated trails. Because currently with a license plate, you can drive kind of wherever you want on a road. But there is no mechanism to go on to a state highway or a city road, but you've got a lot of state highways that come right through the middle of Rock Springs. And this will just allow you to figure out where you want them to go. And gas stations or food or lodging or whatever be the case, because we're going to need this because the distances between Rock Springs and, say, Evanston, or in those few areas in between with fuel. I mean, obviously, you've got to be careful where you're driving out here, because the beauty of it is it's the Wild West out in the middle of nowhere, but the danger is it's the Wild West in the middle of nowhere. So people have to be prepared. So there'll be wayfinding signs. It's basically the beginning of a system.
Just clarify now, when you're talking crossing interstates, we're not talking just go over the surface of the interstate. It's at the exits and interchanges underneath, so we don't see people, hey, I can do this now.
No,
Thanks, Cole.
Mayor Mickelson, Councilor Zadi, yes, Councilor Zadi. We cannot actually physically drive over the interstate and go from side to side. But oddly enough, going under them, or if you had a bridge that went over them, that's the problem. They consider that being on the connected to the interstate, even though you're physically, say, underneath it. So it's a terminology issue.
So for the shooting facility committee, what's the timeline and process if we're looking to find somebody to serve on that?
Legislators, two House, two Senate. There's a sports industry person. There's a conservation industry person. I can't remember them all, Mayor Mickelson, but it's none of it that, frankly, you would directly appoint. It would be, we try to front people that would be accepted to that committee. I get, okay, as long as we're talking about the same thing. And I met Muley Fanatics as being somebody in the sportsman industry, and then the firearms industry. Obviously, we have Caltech here, and that's part of the makeup. I should have came with the bill. I apologize. And Mayor Mickelson, if I could, I'd like to, I don't know if Representative Stith would really like this, but Representative Stith is Speaker Pro Tem, which is in line for leadership to be Speaker of the House. It is a very big deal. It's an important position for Southwest Wyoming to increase our voice. And I just wanted to say that and introduce Representative Stith, because he's doing a fantastic job on appropriations, another very powerful committee. And I'm proud to serve in the same, nested under my Senate district, not to say it's underneath me in any way, but the locality is, we're positioned together, and we both serve the city of Rock Springs. So I'd like to introduce Clark Stith.
Thank you, and thank you for your work, Senator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you. No, we have a really good team. Boy, I tell you, Cody Wiley, JT Larson, Tony Nemec on the House side, and then we've got Senator Kolb and Senator Jones on the Senate side. I think Sweetwater County is really kind of making itself known and felt in the legislature in a way that it hasn't, in a while. So I think things are good. Don't want to repeat what Senator Kolb said, but just a couple things by the numbers. In the supplemental budget bill, we saved $1.4 billion, billion with a B. That's a record for the state. Hasn't been done before to such a large extent. If there's a theme to that, it's education. Over half of that savings went to K through 12 education in one form or another, either permanent or in the reserve account. And on the spending side, the supplemental budget bill spent $380 million. So that means for every dollar we spent, we saved $3.50, which was kind of a big surprise. Which reflects kind of a conservative atmosphere. And I think an understanding that we've got this kind of one-time windfall from higher commodities prices that may not last. So, as you know, revenues in Wyoming are volatile. And so I think the legislature took that into account and put a lot of money into savings. Also, the university did pretty well as well. In the capital construction bill, the university basically got $120 million for some new dorms, to build the new West Stands at War Memorial Stadium. And then also got $12 million for the Science Initiative building. So the university did pretty well. So kind of an education theme there. Even on the spending side for K through 12, of the $380 million that was spent, over half of that was spent on K through 12 operations in one sort of form or another. About $100 million for school capital construction for building schools, $29 million for maintenance, and then $70 million for the so-called external cost adjustment, which is like inflation adjustments. So that's the kind of the by the numbers. As Senator Kolb mentioned, for local distributions, that was upped by $26 million statewide, of which Rock Springs gets an extra. It's $854,000. So Rock Springs will get $854,000 more than it would have, bringing the total to $2.5 million. So hopefully that will, it's better than getting kicked in the head. Hopefully you can make some use for that. Again, maybe this is a bit repetitive, but on the ARPA bill, Senator Kolb did a great job. He was on the conference committee for the ARPA bill, and he managed to get $15 million put into this local support projects bucket, which could be used. You get to pick. It needs to be eligible for so-called ARPA Direct. Essentially, you have to show that this project in some ways addresses the economic adverse consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. So get out your creative writing skills and get that application in. And whichever project you might want to do for that. On some other bills, property tax relief. House Bill 99 dramatically increased the property tax refund program. In the past, to get a property tax refund, you had to be at no more than 75% of median income for your county. That's been up to 125% of median income. So for Sweetwater County, that's a household making up to $96,000. You can get up to 75% of your property taxes refunded. And then the budget bill backfills that with an appropriation so that the cities, counties, and towns don't suffer from the loss. There's no net loss to local governments from that property tax refund. There will be a constitutional amendment that will show up on your ballot in 2024 to determine whether the voters want to treat residential property differently from commercial property. Right now, one of the hard parts about property tax reform has been that if you give a break to residential property tax payers, you have to give the same break to commercial property owners. So there was a bill, for example, that would have lowered the assessment rate on residential property from 9.5% to 7.5% to 8.5%. Well, 7.5% and 8.5%. The problem is to give a tax break like that to residential homeowners, you had to give the same tax break to Walmart, right, and Home Depot, and so that bill failed as a result. But this constitutional amendment would create this separate property tax. Again, that's a couple of years down the road, right? People wouldn't be voting on it until November of 2024. And that's sort of the highlights, and thank you for your patience. You've been very patient listening to all of us talk. So any questions for me?
Question? Yes, sir. On the amendment that you just talked about, how would that affect agricultural land? Because you could have residents on that, yet how would they split that out?
Right. So that was a big issue in the 1980s because the Board of Equalization said, hey, you've got to tax ag land the same as residential. And so there was a constitutional amendment in the 1980s that allowed land zoned agricultural that's in a county, not in a municipality, to be taxed not according to the value of the land, but according to the value of its agricultural produce, right? Which creates low taxes for ag land, okay? So right now we have this statute that, so yeah, and I think right now you only have to produce $500 worth of agricultural products to be considered agricultural. So if you have a few chickens that lay some eggs and you sell a few dozen eggs. So, but not in Rock Springs. But thank you, appreciate all of your support. Please feel free to call at any time with any questions, and always appreciate the feedback. Appreciate that during the session. And again, as the mayor can inform you, we're also working on the governor's office and the DEQ and abandoned mine lands to see if we can do something with the Bitter Creek. That's an ongoing potential. Also, kind of a longer term, I guess, an action item for you all or notice. The Minerals Committee the Joint Minerals Committee. I'm not a member of that, but it's going to have its first meeting in Rock Springs. They've said that. That'll be in May or June. It's worth looking at, and the reason they're having it here is because they're studying, among other things, the feasibility of a large-scale industrial park somewhere in the state. And Sweetwater County really is kind of one of the prime places for it. There was House Bill 190 that I was a co-sponsor on, that Representative Harshman was championing. Essentially was designed to create a task force to look at creating a large-scale industrial park out here by the airport, right? The Middle Baxter Road project. So that's on the radar screen. It's on a statewide screen, so to speak. And the Minerals Committee is going to be considering looking at that as kind of a longer-term project. So I don't know exactly when the date of that meeting will be, but it's something maybe if you have time to pop in and say hello to the Minerals Committee members, let them know that we care. That could be a good thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your work. Sure. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please, sir. If you'd introduce yourself.
My name is Tom Gagnon. Is it on? My name is Tom Gagnon. I live on the Lowell subdivision. That's basically the east side of Rock Springs. And what I want to talk about is the potential for flooding this spring. Each of you, council members and the mayor, you should have received an email with a few photographs. If anybody would like to look at these hard copies of a photograph, you're welcome to. Surely the fire department would want it. As Clark has just said, we have an extra $800,000 to kick around with, so this shouldn't be any problem at all. Okay, I want to talk about, first off, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had, I think, 2 floods, right, in downtown Rock Springs. And those have not come out of Bitter Creek. I want to emphasize that. They actually came out of an area that I call Horse Gulch, which is about a 13-square mile watershed south of Rock Springs. Okay, as I said, it's about 13 square miles, whereas Bitter Creek, the watershed, happens to be 2,400 square miles above Rock Springs. So in other words, the Bitter Creek watershed is 184 times bigger than the Horse Gulch thing that created some pretty impressive flooding in town, right? So what I'm suggesting here is that Bitter Creek is actually a much bigger problem. And in the 1970s, in fact, my part of town, the whole Lowell subdivision, was underwater. Okay, I have an elderly neighbor. When she was a young girl, she toured the neighborhood in a rowboat. Okay, so this can happen. Really, nothing's been done since that period of time in the 70s. And actually about 40% of Rock Springs is in the Bitter Creek flood zone. So if we do get a flood, and I think it potentially it could happen anytime between now and the end of April. Right now, the snow depth in the watershed, as far as I can figure from the websites I've looked at, seems to be in excess of 130% of average snowpack. Okay, all that water, when it melts from 2,400 square miles, has got a funnel right through Rock Springs. Okay. My concern is, and I've skied a good deal of Bitter Creek recently. That's where I took some of these pictures. There's a lot of debris in the creek. Okay, it's overgrown tamarisk and Russian olive trees and some other trees. And these things are potentially dam producing. If you produce a dam in the main floodway, the water's going to come out of that floodway into the streets. Okay, and a particular spot that's really bad is a really crucial spot is where 9th Street crosses Bitter Creek. Okay, there's a lot of vegetation in there that's a good 3 or 4 inches in diameter, and it's not flexible stuff. See, when grasses and willows get flooded, they bend down for the duration of the flood and they spring back up later. These other kinds of trees that I've mentioned by name, they will stand rigid and they will catch debris coming down the creek. And I've brought this up years ago. Nothing has been done, okay, about the vegetation that is growing in right next to the creek in what I call the floodway. Okay, there's the floodplain, and then the floodway is right along the creek. And that potentially could get jammed up with sticks, trash, all kinds of things. Okay, and like I say, the potential, because it's so much bigger than Horse Gulch, the potential could be really catastrophic. And I don't mean to fairmonger or anything, but in a lot of those 2,400 acres square miles rather, I'm sorry, happen to be at a much higher altitude than anything in the Horse Gulch drainage. Okay, and that means more snow. Okay, several times this winter I've been snowshoeing and cross-country skiing in this, basically the Bitter Creek watershed up off Highway 430 and so forth. And I've done this every year for like 17 years, okay, that I've lived here. And I've never seen so much snow. And it's also dense snow. A lot of it is actually ice. So if its depth is 130% of average, I think its density is probably greater than that. So in the next several weeks, if the melt is late, okay, combined with rain, we could have a real problem. Maybe we'd have a tsunami, I don't know. But, and there are long-term, I just want to finish up here by pointing fingers. Okay, there are things that can be done about it, but they've been neglected horribly, mainly by the Conservation District. Okay, the County Conservation District has a seat devoted to Rock Springs, okay, and it has done nothing to help Rock Springs, so I think there's some responsibility there. They need to come up with solutions to not only water quality, but the possible flooding. And as a homeowner, I have a direct stake in that. I won't get into it because it's way too long and complex, but basically what we need are 10,000 dams above town, all little dams made by beaver. Okay, they work for free. They charge nothing. Okay, you don't want them in town because they cut down your ornamental trees and stuff, but outside of town, they ecologically, they would be the solution. But our current county conservation district is actually opposed to the idea. And there's a lot of locals who simply shoot beaver out in sight. And that kind of behavior has got to change because we need the beaver to help control floods. That does nothing to address what we're facing in the next few weeks. What we're facing in the next few weeks is a possible flood. My proposal is that we get people down along the creek with chainsaws, cut down all the trees along the floodway, and haul those trees out of there. Maybe with volunteers, maybe with the city. But it has to be done, in the next couple weeks. I mean, it could come to pass that everything I'm saying comes to naught and there's a orderly melt and everything. But as we have seem to see more and more often in the news, weather extremes are something to reckon with, maybe a little bit more now than in the past. Okay. So that's all I have to say. Are there any questions? No.
Your Honor. Mr. Gangden?
Gangden, yes, that's okay.
The spelling and the pronunciation confused me. I understand your concern short-term. I know long-term, those two gentlemen right there are the ones to talk to. Because if that Bitter Creek project does get the Abandoned Mine Lands Act money, and we can actually complete it, then the Bitter Creek floodplain no longer exists.
I agree, and I think the Bitter Creek project is good. People may say what they will about the former mayor, Tim Como, but I think the one good thing that he did was a lot of water projects around here, including the beginnings of the Bitter Creek project. So yes, I recognize what you're saying, and I agree with you. So that's it.
Thank you. I just learned today that the Bitter Creek is actually the largest watershed west of the Mississippi, and that is a tremendous amount of water that goes through there. And I think it's clear to any rational person that the actions of the UP in moving that for coal mining has directly contributed to the pickle that we're in. Now, government and rationality don't always go together, so I definitely appreciate the work that you all are doing to try to get that rectified. I do have a lot of concern in the immediate when I look at all of the snow that's out there, and I very much appreciate the suggestion of volunteers. I think all too often the solution is someone from the government should show up and do it for me, and that doesn't help when your house and business is flooding. And so I think that is definitely something that we'll be looking at, what we can do to prepare if we have some kind of crazy hot spring and it melts all at once. You know, it's not gonna be a good time. So thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Nope. All righty. Well, that brings us to our officer and staff reports. First, we have a financial report summary for January of 2023. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hickerson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Demus. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hearing none, the motion carries. It was Hickerson and Demus. Matt? It was Hickerson and Demus. Our next is our October and November of 2022 Rock Springs Renewal Fund financial statements. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Zadi. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Hickerson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. Our next item of business are the council committee and board reports, the first being the Joint Powers Telecom Board meeting minutes of January 23, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Botello. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Our next report is the Joint Powers Combined Communication Board meeting minutes of January 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Hickerson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Demus. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hearing none, the motion carries. Our next order of business are bills and claims. The first being the bills and claims for March 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilor Demus. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Hickerson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstaining.
You guys can feel free to hop in here.
Yeah. I mean, Councilor Pedri did.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
So moved.
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay, the motion carries with one abstention from Councilor Petrie. Our next order of business are the salaries for February 22nd, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilor Demus. Is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Zadi.
On it.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstaining.
Thank you, Counselor Pedri. The motion carries with Counselor Pedri abstaining. That takes us to new business. First item of new business is a request from the fire department for permission to apply for a 2022 Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response SAFER grant in the amount of $2,812,213.26 over a 3-year period. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve this request.
Thank you, Counselor Demas. Is there a second?
Second.
Well,
I'll give it to Randy.
thank you. A second to Counselor Hanson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Our next is a request from the fire department for purchase to I almost got that right. For permission to purchase a 3-year one-time payment plan from Stryker for the maintenance of their LifePak 15 defibrillators and Lucas CPR devices. Is there a motion?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
move to approve this request.
Thank you, Counselor Batolo. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Demas. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hearing none, the motion carries. Our final item of new business is a request from the municipal court for permission to fill a vacant program coordinator court clerk position. Is there a motion? Thank you, Counselor Zadi. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Demas. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hearing none, motion carries. Which brings us to our resolutions. Our first resolution is 2023-31.
A resolution authorizing Max Mickelson, acting in his capacity as chairman of the board for the Rock Springs Housing Authority, to accept a capital fund program amendment for the federal fiscal year 2023 for the purpose of receiving $380,853 and authorizing the supervisor of housing and community resources to execute the capital fund program amendment.
Okay, council, is there a motion?
Your
Move
Honor.
to approve resolution 2023-31.
Thank you, Counselor Batolo. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Demas. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if we could please have a roll call.
Counselor Zadi,
Yes.
Hickerson,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Pedri,
Abstaining.
Mayor Mickelson.
Yes. Okay. Our next will be Resolution 2023-32.
A resolution accepting and approving a concession stand rental agreement with Jerry's Concessions and authorizing Max Mickelson as mayor of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, and Matthew L. McBurnett as city clerk of the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming, to execute said agreement on behalf of the city.
Okay, council, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution 2023-32.
Thank you, Councilor Hickerson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Pedri. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if we could, please.
Counselor Hickerson,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Pedri,
Yes.
Zadi,
Yes.
Mayor Mickelson.
Yes. Our final resolution is 2023-33.
A resolution accepting and approving an updated job description for the position of program coordinator court clerk at pay grade 38 for the city of Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Council, do we have a motion?
Your Honor,
Councilor Demas.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-33.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Matt, if you will, please.
Counselor Hanson,
Yes.
Batolo,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Pedri,
Yes.
Zadi, Hickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Mickelson.
Yes. Anybody have anything they'd like to say before I slam the gavel?